Hey guys, I wanted to do a little recap video while it's fresh in my mind. It's Friday afternoon, Friday night now, and it's been a heck of a week. I had another really stellar week this week. Probably made around $5,000 to $7,000. I did a video for yesterday on MEDS, and I'm going to talk about the exact kind of opposite thing that happened today and how you can use not just my algo but volume analysis to help you pick better trades. All right, now we're going to start off with PTIX AMST, and then we're going to talk about UONE. Okay, and I'm going to try to go through them relatively quickly, so bear with me here. Okay, we'll go from the easiest to the hardest. Okay, so yesterday we talked about how volume can be used to, and comparison volume with the float and volume with the market cap can be used to figure out the direction of a stock. Okay, whether or not it's going to continue higher or go lower. And these three choices that we're going to look at today, PTIX, AMST, and UON, should really give you a very good idea. Now, I'm going to use my algo because my algo is very good at picking out and visually giving me a display as to when to get short and when to get long. And basically, if you don't know what my algo is, it's basically measuring when relative volume dries up. It creates a little box, and then you want to trade in the direction of the breakout. Okay, so if we look at AMST, and let's look at some stats on it first. AMST, you can see it has a float of 20 million. So it's it's not a micro float, but it's a low float, that's for sure. And it has a market cap of 59 million. Okay, now those are really two important numbers. So the first thing I want to look at with this is what percentage of the float is short. And you can see here, not a lot, right? Not a lot at all. Only 0.8% of the float is short. So that's telling me right off the bat that there's a much lower probability that this can squeeze higher. Okay? Now before we proceed any further, let's take a quick look at the daily. Now, AMST has been being sold all the way down from 9 to 2. We had this big day here, which was immediately rejected. So and you can see it was on a high volume, so almost more than 50% of that candle was rejected. Okay? Now, when we opened today, and remember, what was our market cap? Our float was 20 million. And let's take a look at the pre-market volume. So in the pre-market, I'm just going to make this bigger so it's easier to see. In the pre-market today, here's a pre-market, we had about 2 million, maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 million, right? So a very small percentage, well, not very small, 20% of the float was created that demand. Actually more, right? Because this right here. So 20% of the float created that demand, shot it to 705, and then rejected all the way down to the open, which was right here. Okay? So about 6 million worth of demand, and in this case you have greater rejection, right? You've almost rejected close to 50% of that. So if you take a look at 3 million is demand and 3 million is supply. Does that make sense? So it's pretty equally weighted at this particular point in time. So we're going to watch the open very carefully, and we're going to watch volume very, very carefully, okay? Now, right off the bat, we open here, it gaps up and immediately rejects on a 1 million share candle. So basically, by the close of this candle, we had about 3 million shares that went nowhere. Do you understand that? It's really important. That's that's almost 50% of the pre-market volume. So 3 million shares of a 20 million float went nowhere. Price went nowhere. Now if we take a look here, we reject almost 25% of the move since the close. And if we total up all this volume, you're probably looking closer at 10 million shares. So 10 million shares, and the price rejected and went lower. Does that make sense? At least for now, right? So 10 million shares of supply came into that market, which was probably these guys over here that got trapped yesterday, and they were like, oh shit, I can get out right now. They thought they were going to get burned, but yesterday they got trapped and said, I can get out. So that created that selling pressure. So right off the bat, within the first 20 minutes, or 20 minutes, the first 10 minutes of the stock, almost 20 minutes, we have an enormous amount of supply pushing price down. Does that make sense? Right? All of a sudden the little box forms, we break out to the short side. My upside risk is really limited. I took that short there and I rode it all the way to the 75% retracement from the open level. Easy breezy short. All using volume analysis, all using price acceptance or rejection, supply and demand, understanding the float, and understanding that that was rejection. That was supply hitting the market. Okay? The algo just gave me a really pretty representation of it. PTIX, sort of the same story. Okay? So PTIX, we have an 11 million share float with a 39 market cap. And you can see between here and here, price went nowhere. It went higher and rejected. Well, what's the volume in here? What's the volume in here? The volume in here looks like 2 million, maybe 3, 4, maybe 6 million shares. It's only an 11 million share float. If 6 million shares can't move price higher, where's price gonna go, guys? Okay, I'm giving you gold here. If you really listen to what I'm telling you, there's gold in what I'm telling you. If 6 million shares of an 11 million share float can't move price past this amount, there's only one direction it can go. And boom, the algo triggered the short, and down it went, down it went, down it went. There is just too much supply that is overwhelming demand. Okay? Too much supply is overwhelming demand. Now, let's look at UONE. All right. Now, UONE, now this is slightly larger market cap, right? Oh, it's not, 6 million. Okay. I don't know why I thought it was smart. It's a larger market cap, but smaller float. Okay? Now, we get a price move up. We get an algo that triggers along, right? It consolidates, 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 consolidates. The algo triggers another long. Now notice the massive amount of volume that comes in here. Now, when you see that much volume and you see a directional move attached to that much volume and the float is only 6 million, I don't know what that is, but that's pretty overwhelming, right? That's probably, these are it's probably about, I'd say like what, 2 million shares, right? Which is almost 1/3 of the float, and price goes from 16 to 18. There's only one direction it's going to go, guys, from there. And that is that demand is outstripping supply. Demand is outstripping supply. So when my algo forms here and breaks out to the long side, and demand is outstripping supply, not the opposite, that's an easy trade. And it just flies. And again, demand outstripping supply. See that? Algo breaks out again. Now ultimately, it does hit 24 and starts to fade off a little bit, right? But I want you to pay attention to where the highest volume starts to happen. Notice the volume here and the volume here. Where did that happen? Did that happen on up moves? Notice the volume here. Notice what happened with the volume, right? Notice the volume here. Notice what happened with that volume, okay? But notice this high volume right there. That actually happens at a high. And then this high volume here happens at another high. So when we start to reject something we didn't do before, when we start to reject, now you can have a really good idea that the top is in. But the algo caught 1, 2, 3 really strong pushes higher, and again, using volume and price movement and taking the algo with the breakouts, do you see the difference between UONE and PTIX? Right? Okay, there you have it. 3 great trades using the algo. Wins again. It's just absolute gold, guys. If you want to get a hold of this algo and you want to start using it, you can head on over to my website. And I'm going to throw in a package. Like I said, if you buy the algo, I'm going to throw in the penny stock trading course with it for free. Thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Love you all. Bye for now.